to a stream. This is the top 16 of the Texas Mini Worlds. Oh, let's make sure this fits. Looks a little large. Come on. Is that showing everything? No, it's not. Why is this struggling? All right, I'll figure out what's wrong with the window in a minute, I guess. Sorry about that. So we've got Throne Room versus Hundown, a pretty classic matchup. We'll get into in a minute. Obviously, it's not super useful if we cannot see the game. So there we go. Let's no. Nope. That. Nope. Okay. Is that, are we, no, we still don't have the dark side stuff. All right. Think we're good. Should be good. We're all good. All right. Always those little things to fiddle with. Thanks for your patience, guys. This is the Texas Mini Worlds. We are in the top 16 right now. We are seeing Edward, who is echien on your top of your screen. He is the Dark Side Huntdown player. Oh, I already see a spicy card. Epic Duel is on the table, so we'll talk about that in a minute. That's pretty cool. At the bottom of your screen is the light side player, BKippel on Jimp. Both of these players. I believe one of them went 3-1 and one went 4-0. I think it was Edward who went 4-0 in his pod to advance to the top 16. And I will double check that though. Edward went 4-0 and Brad went 3-1, got second in his pod. So they are facing off here. This is game one. They might apparently do game two shortly after this or immediately following. I don't know. That was apparently up in the air. This matchup, we have, let's see, was that Vader? Was lost from reserve deck. Okay. So Lightside went first in this, as Throne Room does, and they got a turn one Jedi Council Chamber and Boss Nass Chambers, and then, of course, used their farm card there, I Must Be Allowed to Speak, to pull out the Lars farm. So they got all their activation in the deck. They might have Boss Nass Chambers, the battle planes to go along with if they want a second battleground, but that's not necessarily typical. There's no insurrection combo that a lot of Throne Rooms use, so there's no docking bays or anything. So Light got a very strong hand. Dark Side, meanwhile, lost. They did a 12-card hand and started Epic Duel, which is pretty cool. We don't see that very often, so we might see some duels with Circle Is Now Complete or Vader's Obsession. And there's not a ton of anti-dueling cards in the meta right now. Jedi's Resilience comes up sometimes, mostly in Legend. Concentration comes up, but that just makes them lose 4 force or cancel the duel. Usually it's worth continuing if you've got that plan, though if you have to top deck for it and you've been tracking that would be unfortunate. But in general, there's not a lot of anti-duel cards for light side typically played. So looks like Dark might get cheeky here and try and do some fun epic dueling. On their second turn, Light went ahead and played Luke, Old Man Luke, over to the farm, which gave them a use pile pull. and I know I'm a little bit behind the action here, but just sort of catching up because I was messing with that resolution. Played Luke, which gave me a used power pull, and then played Ray, which played another used power pull, and pulled that Saber with Saitor, so kind of set up there. And Dark said, all right, you can have that. I don't want to mess with that with what I'm looking at right now, and goes ahead and throws a presence on the Jedi Council chamber and throws down a Vader. Not going to be able to flip, obviously, because Luke is at a battleground, but can start draining for 4 here, 5 if he gets that Saber out, which it does look like he's deploying from his reserve right now. So that'll be a drain of 5 versus the light side player's drain of 2. Significantly, though, the light side is out activating dark side. Dark side got 1 Twix. I didn't see if they pulled that with Sonic or just naturally got it in a 12-card hand, but either way, they got 1 Twix. They're still likely playing Accelerates in the bridge. They're likely playing Vanny and the Castle, and so not getting any of those other cards is kind of rough for Dark right now. They are getting out activated 12-9, and Light, I assume, will pull Battle Plan, which will hurt the Dark a lot more than Light, because Light will still be left with 9, whereas Dark will be left with 6 after paying. The other thing Light can do is, since there's no Crush the Rebellion out, Presence of the Force can just be canceled by Clash, which pretty much every throne room plays. So, and then Light can just put out Simple Tricks and Nonsense. So that would be the ideal play. If your Light side is to just cancel that presence, strand them there at this non-battleground, and Dark would be in a tough spot if that happened. Light does have used pile pulls that it's going to get. It obviously used up its Rey, though if she dies and comes back, and it's used up the Luke, but it still has Leia, Chewie, Lando to get a used pile pull, and Rey's going to get card draw, and so Light's going to be, probably plays Rescue in the Clouds and possibly 3PO, so Light's going to be digging through and looking for that solution to Presence of the Force. It is an odd card to play when you don't have Crush, because Clash is so prevalent. But Dark goes ahead and throws down Tarkin 2 with the Vader. He doesn't want just like a lone Padme clearing Vader, canceling the text and the immunity and everything. So decides to go ahead and put some backup, make it a little stronger if he can. Hold that sight and hold the drain, and Light can't find Clash. That would be pretty strong. Light loses Poe from reserve. A good one to lose. There's probably not going to be a lot of space action this game. So we'll see if Dark pulls their shield to the battle order shield to make Light drain, because otherwise Light's going to drain free and then pull it themselves. So do you pull it to make them pay? If you're worried about getting shield busted, you might want your own Coward at some point. There's not a lot else you might want. Possibly a code clearance for Jedi Lev, and then also if Light gets a little cheeky with an Owen Baru Harvest or something like that. But otherwise, a firepower, and Light's not really going to dodge away anything like that. So there's not a ton of shields you need, but Dark does go ahead and opt to let him drain free, and so he drains. And then Light plays the Clash of Sabers. He already has that in hand, so I'm guessing he either got lucky and drew that opening hand, or maybe just with Rey, or he used Pal pulled for it, knowing if Vader Tarkin come down and I can Clash Tarkin because Vader's immune. Or Maul and Dr. E comes down and I can Clash Maul. That sort of thing is really good, and so he might have just used pile pulled for it with one of these two. Either way, however he got it, he did have that in hand, which is big for turning that into non-battleground, pulling that Simple Tricks. Vader and Tarkin are just doing nothing right here, and that's really unfortunate for Darkseid. And with Visage on table, that presence is going to get buried before he can escape it at the end of this turn. So Light, realizing that he's pretty far ahead with those two characters stranded, just opts to beef up the one battleground on table. So looking pretty strong for Light side. Light also is going to play an R2, so he'll have the option to going to these executor sites and creating more battlegrounds later if he wants. If Dark gets out their 2-2 downtown plaza, and maybe does a Odin Nestler or Lana Dobreed combo to get these guys out. Maybe move them over to the farm. Edward loses a Restraining Bolt from reserve deck, and that's an interesting card right now because it can't go on R2, which is your main nemesis droid. But it does go on 3PO, and 3PO can be annoying, and it does go on BB-8, and BB-8 can sit there and ping you. So it's not awful to play, especially if you're wanting high destiny because you're epic dueling. But it's a trade-off if you're thinking, do I play Restraining Bolt or do I just play Elixir Droids? Elixir Droids is 3 less destiny, but it can kill the R2 besides the 3PO and BB-8. So it's a tough call. Edward does play that Restraining Bolt, but it looks like he top decked that to Visage. So now it's going to be Darkseid's turn, and he only is activating 8 now without that presence. Chris Knudsen makes a good point. It can go on R2 if Vader cancels his text. So Vader cancels R2's text, then you play, so he's not immune to Restraining Bolt. Then you play the Bolt, which cancels his text. And then at the end of the turn, when it would restore from Vader, it's just still canceled. So you can, but then you'd have to have Vader over where R2 is. So if R2 is going over onto the Executor, typically you don't want your Vader stuck over there. You can do the hunt down, use 4 Force to take Vader into hand. And that's all right. I guess you'd pay 4, you'd put Vader down, you'd blank his text, play their Restraining Bolt. It's pretty convoluted. So it's unlikely compared to the simpleness of a Elixir Droids. So, but right now that activation differential is pretty rough. I almost think he should have just eaten the drain for another turn and not worried about going down. It's just really tempting to set up that big massive drain and start more damage of your own. But Darkseid does play Cold Feet, so Light's going to have to pay to drain. Dark, of course, it's hurting them more, but they don't have a drain right now with Simple Tricks going on. Canceling that drain at non-battleground. So Dark's main worry, I guess, is if Light plays Grimtosh, which would be really annoying, but they're so far behind in activation and behind in board control that they just have to say, all right, if you have Grimtosh, that's a bummer, but I need to just draw and try and get some more stuff going. So they do just draw. Light, I imagine, will pay to drain for 2, which they do. With that Visage hitting both of them, that extra 2, Dark's taken 4 to Light Side's 2 each round. Definitely squarely putting Light Side ahead. Oh, and actually there's a second Saber there. Light played last turn with Saitor, so it's actually a drain of 3 now. And that'll make it even tougher on Darkseid, of course. And Light's just opting to go all in on this site. And they say, even if you go eventually get your own 2/2 and you get them over via some sort of Ellis Hellrot or more likely Lana Dobreed, you're still only draining 3 there with, a 2/2 site plus a Saber. And I'm draining 3 here and I'm already ahead. So I'm more worried, and that might take you a while. They might still just be stuck, and it might just be a 2/2 and Maul, which I can attack with Qui-Gon or Obi or whatever. So Light's like, I just want to fortify this site, lock down this drain of 3, plus, as a benefit, get the use pile pull. That being Leia meant he got a use pile pull. Losing Odin from reserve is kind of a bummer because that would have been nice to warp over somewhere later if he needed it, but he did top deck that. So that's always the tough part of Hunt Down, is you end up top decking really good, really useful cards, and it can be frustrating. So I might need to move my webcam here if it's blocking that site. Let's pop it. I don't know. There for now. Why not? So Vanny does come down. That's nice for Edward, because Vanny can activate a force every Darkseid turn, so he's basically like a 1/0. Right now he's going to pull a card with Vader in hand, likely the castle. Definitely the castle if it's in there. So Edward's hoping he has not activated the castle. 8 out of 21. So he's got about a between 35 and a little over 35% chance of having activated it. But he has no way to check his reserve deck with the Saber already out from I Am Your Father, nothing on table uploads. He would have had to burn another shield to check his reserve deck, so he just has to go for it. He did not find the castle, which means he's still at 8 force plus Vanny's 1. What he pulled was Vader's Obsession. During your move phase, if Vader moves to Luke's site from an adjacent site. The problem with that is there's not going to be any adjacent sites. There's not a second Tatooine site in either of their decks. Theoretically, if Luke was at the downtown plaza and Vader could be at the security tower and move over and do that, if that's irrelevant, I guess, if he's using it as an epic duel. If it's just for Vader's Obsession, retrieve, non-epic duel thing, it would need to be adjacent. But here it's just if he's present. So scratch that. If he can somehow get Vader over to Luke's site, he'll be able to epic duel him now with that Obsession in hand. But already he's getting lowish on life force. He's got 18 in hand. So he's just like, where is my castle? Where is my accelerates? It's a little tough for him right now. So he loses an extragram off Tarkin from hand. He loses a Blizzard 4 from hand. I'm guessing maybe he's got a second one of those because usually that's a pretty good card. It's immune to these sabers. It's power 8. But he's got one more to lose. Light side, I think here, one interesting thing is we saw Where's Han played and pulled Han Chewie Falcon. So we know there's no solo. It's unlikely he's playing both Han Chewie Falcon and solo. And so he probably has no Chewie also because Chewie's in the ship, which means that Blizzard 4 would be pretty safe from weapons. There could be a Leia's Blaster actually, but there's no Chewie to hit it. And there's no Han to play interrupts from loss. So that clash is likely not coming back. Theoretically, he could have an Obi virtual who does the swap 2 cards or something like that. He could play a second clash, but both of those are unlikely. So with no solo, if Dark does play a second Presence of the Force, it's probably safe. But Dark probably is only playing one. I don't know. I don't know what their lists are, but just guessing based on more typical builds of these, it would be odd to have a second Presence. So light side's going to go for the beatdown now. Dark does have a huge hand and probably is playing at least one Gick because, one, either a combo or not. Non-combo and pulling it with Masterful is more likely. We haven't seen him pull with Masterful. He very well could have just drawn it naturally. But light says, you know what? I'm going to go beat up Vanny. Right here, I essentially get a shot to overflow you for, 5, 8, whatever, around there. If you have the Gick, oh well, I cancel Visage, which is kind of good for the light right now because it's putting pressure on the dark. But on the other hand, if light wants to slow this game down a little, they're the only one doing damage. If light cancels Visage, dark's doing 0 damage and light is doing 3. Further, dark not being in a battleground means Coward, which isn't out yet, but would be. Coward would not stop an Executor drain. So if light side can, so light drew a 1 for Battle Destiny, so he'll only overflow by 3 if he doesn't have a Gick. But as I was saying, Dark really needed. Oh, Dark is deciding to lose both characters because Jar Jar is not enough to cover the 4 forfeit. He doesn't want to leave alone Jar Jar. He must not have Hujix in hand. Because otherwise, if you're light, you leave the lone Jar Jar and let Dark waste resources coming to kill it, and then you just Hujix. Dark's wasting a whole nother turn as you're getting further ahead. So I would have left Jar Jar if he has the Hujix. He probably won't need it for much else this game, but maybe he doesn't have it in hand. He does go ahead and opt to lose both Jar Jar first and then Obi. Oh, and Taco Bell asked the same question in the chat. What do you do there? And I think it just depends. If you have the Hujix, leave Jar Jar. If you don't, lose them both. So the scenario I was talking about is not going to come into play, but if Dark had drawn a 3 or less, or Light had that Hujix, Dark can't even stop this with Coward right now, so Light could potentially get further ahead. Dark would have to go spin their whole turn, 8 force and 2 saved. Maul's going to take 8 of that to deploy in battle, so meanwhile Dark's doing no more damage. So if Dark would definitely be in a lot worse spot if they had drawn just a 3 here, because then just Jar Jar would have died and Obi would still be sitting there and Dark would have to go deal with that without doing any more of their own damage. So and Visage would have been canceled. Whereas now Dark was able to peel a force first, and then Light had to lose the other character, and now Dark's gonna have to peel 2 more, but also will lose that Vanny, and Visage is not canceled. That being Dark's only source of damage right now, Dark really did want to keep that on table so the differential just doesn't get too bad here, this being match play. So Dylan, what Taco Bell from Basil was asking is, should he have left Jar Jar there to drain? If against a Battle Destiny of 4, he could just forfeit Obi and that would cover it, and that would leave Jar Jar there. And so that's what he was wondering, should he leave Jar Jar there? But you don't risk Jar Jar getting overflowed unless you have the Hujix in hand. So Dark keeps that on, so it can hopefully reduce down Light Side's differential here. But right now we're at Dark has 28 to Light's 34. So Light's already up by 6. They're going to add another 3 more. They're going to be up by 9 after the end of this control phase. And again, Dark's not doing any damage, just that Visage that's in both. So I think Dark, it's Dark Side's turn. Hopefully after that last turn of drawing, they got their Downtown Plaza and they got some stuff that can go there, and they can, right now, Dark, it's extremely unlikely they win this game. Maybe if there's a Lana Dobreed into a big epic duel where Luke gets crossed and Dark can get a big battle. But with deploying the Downtown Plaza, it's even less likely that Dark wins. And here's why. Dark is basically playing that and saying, I'm going to drain race you. Well, Dark's already behind in the drain race. So playing that is basically, I'm going to try and get your diff down. Whereas if Dark did have the tools in hand, which he doesn't, I think, because he would be going for this, but if Dark did have like a Lana in hand and maybe and deployed that Dr. E and then Lana'd both of them over and epic dueled Luke and won, either Luke crosses or he places him out of play, he loses 9, and then if Dark can take this site, we get into a situation where Dark's the one only doing damage. If they're piled there and there's no other battlegrounds and Light doesn't play any other battlegrounds and Dark can just pile enough, then Huntdown flips. Oh, he did have the Lana. I think that's a mistake. I don't agree with drain racing here. And Light grabs that so that they're just trapped there, which is the right move. I don't agree with drain racing here because you're losing. So you're basically punting the game and saying, I'm going to try and grind down diff. Whereas I do think he still has a chance to win if he goes over there. And because if he can take that site, it's a drain of... for Dark 1, but once Vader's there, it's a 2, plus the Saber would make it a 3, and Light would be doing no damage. Light would have to find their R2 and come over here, and it gets into more cat and mouse, but Dark can get a big advantage by taking that site and having Visage hitting both players. Whereas right now, Dark's going to drain 3, Light's going to drain 2 because of that image. Light might have to find a Saw or something like that if they play it to negate that, but Light's doing 2, basically 0 from the site and then 2 from the Sabers. And Dark's doing 3, so Dark's slightly ahead. But they're both hitting to Visage, so Dark is doing 5 and Light's doing 4. Dark's catching up by 1 slowly, but is already behind by, I think it was 9, something like that. So let's see, right now it's 18 and 3, 21 and 11, 32. Versus 20. So yeah, Light's up by 12 now because it was 9 last turn and now there was another round of drain. So Light's up by 12 and it's hitting 4 instead of 5. So Light's happy to take that trade. Dark, over the course of the next 4 turns, Dark will run out of force and Light'll win. So Chris says, maybe as a Maul to Suicide versus Luke, and then you don't draw Destiny and he can't drain till he drops another Jedi or Luke. Oh, right. Leia being a Skywalker says she couldn't drain if Huntdown is flipped. And so if he can Suicide, kill Luke, he could do that. And that's reasonable. It's just there's a lot of things that could go wrong with it. So one, Dark would need to have a Gick, which if they did, they might have used it on the Vanny battle, though maybe not, trying to keep Visage in play. So Dark would need to have a Gick, or they're taking a lot of overflow because Maul's 7. He's going to get hit by one of these mulls 7 to 16. So they have to have the Gick for that. They also have to hit Luke, which means there needs to be no concentration. Or he has to hit on the first one because a deflection could also stop the second one. And the other thing that could go wrong is, I don't know, I guess that's it. You need the Gick, and you need him to have no weapons protection. Oh, and then the other thing that could go wrong is he could just have another Jedi in hand. He could be holding another Luke. He could be holding an Obi, a Qui-Gon, whatever. And so you go and you suicide maul and you do that and you kill the Luke, and then he goes, okay, I deploy another dude. I skipped one round of training. So light, I don't think would be, yeah. Oh, and with this maul, you definitely don't want to do it because a blaster deflection just stops his one swing. So the good thing about this maul for Edward is he adds 1 to the drain. So now this is going to be a drain of 4 for Dark versus 2 for Light. Dark's going to catch up a little bit more. Of course, Dark should be digging for undercover spy cancelers because if you're Light, you're probably digging for Jin. Because Jin would just shut that down. And so... Yeah, Dylan says if Brad deploys Obi to Vader, he could duel, but Dark made that a lot less incentivizing to do that with piling this harder. I like that Dark played Coward because that means Light can't walkling if Saber's lost or anything like that. So right now, Dark's behind, but they can catch up slowly. It's looking like Light should win by 12 or so, though. And, you know, for as much as people have been talking about in the meta about slow grind games of we got, you know, ISB versus no idea or something like that, this is not a slow grind game. And it is a stack one site game, which is what we have a lot of decks stack one site. No idea stacks the beach. Legend stacks a site with a couple guys in BB-8 and Rose. ISB generally stacks a site with a bunch of guys or a walker. We do have a lot of stack games, court stacks, audience chamber, stuff like that. So we do have a stack game here, but it's not a slow, boring, grindy game. And there has been a lot of sort of what ifs we've been discussing, a lot of different scenarios where we've been saying, well, if Light has the Clash and if Dark has the Gick and if the, you know, so it's definitely an interesting game to think through various possibilities and lines of play and trying to optimize. I'm going to win, but by how much diff? What's the best way to shut this down? If you're Dark, do you deploy that downtown plaza and go for diff and try and increase drains? Or do you go over and try and take the Vader's Obsession shot and cross your fingers and see if you can take that site over and meanwhile stop all the damage? So, yeah, it's... Another interesting play we didn't talk about, I didn't really mention at the time, was he peeled one before Vanny so that Light had to lose both characters, so Visage stayed on table because Dark was doing no damage and wanted that damage. But now in retrospect, I don't know if he had this in hand at the time, but I think he probably did. He might have wanted to let Light cancel that, to lose Vanny, and then Obi cancels it and then dies, and then Dark peels 3. Brad loses draw their fire from hand, so he's indicating he's not going to want to battle. He's like, I'm content to just drain race. I'm ahead. Yeah, I'm losing 4-2, but I'm not going to want to battle. Or it might help you more than me. Even if I do come down and battle, you might battle back, or you might come into me here. I don't want draw their fire out there. So, but if Dark had canceled that Visage because they knew they were going to go race, then instead of it being 4-2, or 4-2 in terms of drains, plus this essentially makes it 6-4. It would just be 4-2. 4-2 is a lot better to catch up than 6-4 is, because 6-4 drains you out so much quicker if you're taking 4 every turn instead of 2 every turn. So Dark might have. Oh, and Dark just preemptively says no Jin. Of course, if you're Light, you still want a Jin because you'd rather take 2 to Krennic than you would 4 to the drain. So it's not a permanent solution, but it is for the next turn. If the turn after Jin comes down, it nets you an extra 2 by losing 1 now. I don't know that was worth it, but he has to do everything he can to get down that diff. But if he had let Visage be canceled, then and he was just taking 2 instead of 4, he could last longer to drain for 4 longer, so it might have been the right play to actually cancel Visage. It's always hard to know that at the time, especially us watching. We don't know what's in his hand and what his future plans are. But usually as Dark, you don't want him to cancel Visage, so I don't know if it really crosses mind much that getting Light's damage down, if you're going to turn the drain race to your favor, you want to slow down the game. So Dark loses Sith Fury and Fet, and this is that's interesting. I guess Light is holding their Hujix now, so they're like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw her down. It's gonna cost me 2 cards, Ahsoka and Hujix, that I'm gonna have to lose instead of 4 to the drain. So that'll essentially save me 2. Plus, I can Walkling now because I have the second battleground. So deploying her gets me a card back that makes up for one of the 2. So essentially, I'm losing 2 cards from hand, Ahsoka and Hujix, getting 1 card back and blocking a drain of 4. It's netting me 3. So it's a good play by Light side. And Dark's just getting... It's funny because normally the games go so slow that I have time to like tell you the cards are being lost from hand. Oh, he drains and he loses this to it, that sort of thing. But they're quick players, and they're both just like, all right, I drain, I draw, pass turn, Visage, drain, draw. Like it's just pretty quick back and forth. Right now, Light needs to not be losing from reserve anymore. They've got 6 in hand, and Dark is down to 9 total, and Dark's taken 4 every round. So Dark is not going to be able to drain in 2 turns, which means Light, I mean, it's very unlikely. It's possible, but that limited resources is in this hunt down deck. Maybe not very unlikely. It does become a card more common in match play than it is in Swiss. So Dark has the Sniper Dark Strike, which is nice because then they'll also get the ping of I am your father damage and still get to drain this turn, but they need to hit, which it looks like they probably will, a 5, and they'll need at least a 2 here. Oh, do they have a Sith Fury? I think we saw one lost. No, so they missed that swing, which essentially just cost them a lost card, the Sniper. So that's unfortunate for Dark side after a lot of unfortunate things this game. So Dark battles, they're not even going to swing. They'll just draw Destiny. Light's going to draw Destiny, get massively outpowered. Probably Tarkin dies. Maybe Doctor E. It doesn't really matter. Ahsoka dies and gets Hujixed. So, yeah, Light should just lose from hand from here on out and should win by 13. I think I said 12 earlier. It turned out to be 13. Pretty close. Yep, there's a Hujix. So now on Light's turn. So Dark is at 8. They'll hit Visage on both turns. Will make it 6. Light will drain 2. That'll make it 4. And so, yeah, Dark's only going to get 1 drain in. Did I say that right? 8. Visage. 7. 6, 5, 4. Yeah, they'll be at 4. They'll pay to drain, and then it'll knock them below. So, yeah, so Light's only going to take... they'll take another drain of 4 and 2, 3 more Visage. So they will still lose some from reserve. They'll lose... Yeah, so maybe it went by 11 or so. I don't know. Cool. Let's see. If we are in hindsight second guessing this is Dark, you want to take the farm. With the presence of the Force play is so risky with no crush. I mean, we just immediately saw it. Mike Turner asked in the chat, like, isn't he just going to clash that? And I immediately was like, clash. Like, that's on everyone's mind. And I'm sure it was on Edward's mind too, but maybe he felt like Light just with that, couple of characters he had there. And Light does limit that with Jin. It's cute. So Light with just a couple characters, maybe he felt he couldn't contest that and had to take the riskier play, but that clash was just brutal. Dark got a lot of bad luck this game. With their activation was just awful. Light on the other hand, got all their activation turn one, and then got a couple use pile pulls and clashed, and you know, Light was in a good position. They pretty much only lost. They lost to a Drain of 4 a couple times, and then they lost a bunch to Visage. But now we're looking at Dark's final control phase. They are gonna they just pinged with Krennic. Now there's gonna be a Visage, which Brad will lose from hand. Oh, why would he? Oh, because Dark's not going to be able to afford to drain next turn. I don't think Dark's going to make it to their next turn. They're going to Visage, Light will drain 2, and Visage the Light. Dark doesn't have another turn, but Light goes ahead and said, I'll move away so you don't get the free damage. Of course, Dark has a Force. They might as well move Krennic over. I don't know. It's a play that doesn't matter. Oh, Bill says, what's the math on free Krennic damage versus paying for drains here? There's only one drain, so it just costs 3. So as long as he's at 3+, he can pay to drain. And he would be until essentially the second to last turn, because he's taken 4 damage every round because of the drain and the Visage. So he's not going to get down to a point where he can't drain, and it would be better to have the free Krennic. It would have been better to pay for 4 right there than to do 2. Yeah, so that's why Brad played that Chin. So Edward's just pondering his move, if you move Krennic or not. I guess he's thinking, if I move Krennic, Jin breaks her cover and battles. It doesn't matter, because with 0 cards in hand and 4 in life force, here at the end of Dark's turn, they lose 1, they go to 3. Light pays and drains for 2, Dark goes to 1. Into Light's turn, they lose the last one to Visage. Like, Light's losing 4 per round, as we said, and Dark has exactly 4. But even if Dark had 6, it would still knock him down below that 3 drain. Like, Dark's not close to being able to pay to drain. Ideally for them, they'd have 1 more so they could eke out an extra Visage damage or 2, because light side player's turn, Dark will lose first, I believe. I mean, that's how it should be. I don't know if that's how Gem treats it. But if they had 1 extra, then they could survive their turn, Light's turn, and Light would have to lose 1 on their turn, and then 1 on Dark's turn. They'd get 2 more diff damage if they had 1 more, but alas, they do not. So they drain. They'll just pass all the way to the end of turn, and Visage will kill Dark. Light has no cards in hand, 12 in life force. They both have big loss piles, 43 to 32. Because there's not a lot deployed on that table. You usually see tables a little bit busier. Yeah, so Dark does have to lose first. So Light wins by 12. So Brad, plus 12 to advance. Looks like Edward says quick 5 and then the second. So we will take a 5-minute break. To Eastern. Let's see if I can. There we go. Let's do that. Boop. Nope, that didn't work. Well, we're gonna be back in 5 minutes. I was trying to put up like a screen showing that, but oh, there we go. How do I change the font in this thing? Or the zoom? There we go. I don't know if that's visible, but sure. All right, I'm gonna mute this and I will be back in just a minute. All right. We're coming back here. I'm nice. Did I turn off my webcam? All right. So we are entering game 2 of the Texas Mini Worlds Top 16 match between Brad. BKippel is the top player on your screen, the dark side player who is playing Imperial Entanglements. And Edward is the light side player on the bottom of the screen. He is playing Throne Remains. It is, we saw Throne Remains, Brad played Throne Remains last game. It is a little bit different build. Brad had the farm card, which let him do use pile pulls on Tatooine. Edward has the docking bay puller. Edward is wishing he had the farm card because, of course, all of his guys are going to be deploying over to Tatooine, and those use pile pulls would be really big. Would help a lot in this matchup. Brad won the first game by 12. So Edward, as the light side player, is going to have to beat entanglements by more than 12. Or it could go to lost piles if exactly 12, but he's shooting for 13 plus. Dark side, of course, gets the free Emperor because playing against Throne Room, they start according to my design. That lets them download the free Emperor. That's going to get them some mobilization points, activation turn 1. However, it does open up an option of a turn 1 attack. If you... Light has 5 force, which means they can afford Rey, pull the saber with Saitor, and 1 to battle. That would cost 5. Or if they haven't, they can play Anakin, who costs 5, pull the saber, and he battles free. Anakin, of course, is the more ideal choice. He has immunity less than 4 instead of less than 3, so more likely to survive. He adds 1 to each swing, so he's more likely to hit. And they both add 1, Anakin to the individual battle destiny, Rey to the total, but when drawing 1, they're the same there. So they both and Anakin's 1 more power. So ideally, you would play Anakin and saber in battle, except if you do not have any activation. He pulls a docking bay. If he's missing the JCC, Boss Nass Chambers, he wants to draw for Wisas or Speaks, that sort of thing. If you need to draw your turn 1, you obviously can't make that play. But if you do have a Speak, you have a Wisa, you got all your activation, and you got an Anakin, you might be able to just get like 6 or 8 overflow here. You know, if you draw 5, that Anakin's turned into a 6, so you're 11, and they draw, you know, a 2, 11 to their 6, Emperor and 5 right away, that would be pretty strong. In general, in this match, it's very cat and mouse. Mike Turner says this game should be fun, and I agree. It's a very interactive game, and we were talking about different play styles on the forums, and you know, some people like turtling and different things like that. I think this is a good fun one because it's interactive. We will have light side player going aggressively at dark side, and dark side's going to counter back. They'll be battling with veers, and they'll be maneuvering around so that they can flip and try and get occupation damage in. And we don't know how much space the light side player is playing, but there's a potential that light could challenge the Devastator up there, and maybe they're playing Poe and some stuff like that, or maybe they've got a Han Chewie Falcon and or throw down a Profundity and Screaming Lando and clear out stuff, or maybe Light is spaceless and they don't challenge him at all. So there's a few different ways it could go. Light loses Vergence in the Force from their hand, that typically an anti-ISB card. So Dark, their first turn, I believe they pulled Piet and Ozzel with Indoor Shield, and they used Command as the first action of the game to pull General Veers. So they've got their guys set up. They are going to use Arrest Order to get the Executor docking bay. Well, they'll throw down Piet. They'll put Ozzel on board the Devastator for free. They pull a Sight with their objective. This is all sort of fairly standard setup for Darkseid. They're getting their fortress set up over on Tatooine. They're using fanfare to take an immediate effect. Oh, that's cute. Darkside is playing Alert My Star Destroyer, which is going to make the Devastator totally immune to attrition. He'll drop Ozzel down, and then he'll shuttle him up and play Alert My Star Destroyer, which says if your Admiral, Moff, or Dark Jedi just shuttle aboard, deploy on that character. Star Destroyer is immune to attrition. Flagship deploys free. It's lost if the character not aboard. So it's going to stick Ozzel on there permanently. He's fine with that. It'll make it totally immune unless there's something that cancels immunity, like Lightmaker or the Green Leader, something like that. But those cards would not be in a throne room. So it'll be totally immune this game. Throne room theoretically could play a control tunnel vision, and it did back when Black Sun was more popular to cancel Shizor's bounty, but also unlikely to be seen. But it is vulnerable to control tunnel. So Darkside uses Piet to pull battle deployment. He can once per game pull a commander or Admiral's Order, and he plays that battle deployment, which can pull a vehicle, and he uses that. He pulls Tempest Scout 5. He drops the Ozzel down, which he will shuttle up and do Alert My Star Destroyer, and then I imagine he will shuttle or docking bay transit these cards over to this docking bay, put Piat on board, and then he'll be a little more protected from light side attacking that location when he's got Piat on board, a Tempest Scout, and Emperor sitting there as well. Light side, Dark side just moves Emperor over, which I don't like mainly because it cost him a force to do. I don't necessarily mind the conservative play since he's up by 12 in the match, but it's going to make it a lot harder to establish board presence over on Tatooine, simply because all of the people over here at the Executor docking bay, all they can do is go here. They can't, Piat could get off and then move, but you can't have Emperor at one site and the vehicle at the other next turn, so it's going to be harder to get to 3 because that's all going to be clumped up at 1. And of course it cost him a force here, which turn 1 force is very valuable. So it was a very conservative play. Light on their part should go ahead and start establishing. They don't want Dark to flip. If they can keep them from ever flipping, they probably win the game. So Light's going to want to establish at least 1 location, if not 2, on this turn. Taco makes a good point that Brad might just pull the other docking bay next turn, which means 1 character could go to 1 docking bay and 1 to the other docking bay, and that would help him flip. And that's a totally excellent point, Taco. Chris Knudsen asks, he says he hasn't seen a lot of entanglements in Texas Mini Worlds, but maybe he's just been watching the wrong games. I think, I think we always debate, like, is this deck tier 1? Is it tier 1.5? Is it 2? I think entanglements is at almost the perfect spot in that it's playable at a high level, but it's not over the top, so you just see it, 25-40% of your games. I think it's at a really good power level where it was pre-tweak set, it just lost to No Idea. No Idea would go establish the beach stuff, and then all their guys globally be -1. They just go all over Tatooine, and entanglements couldn't keep up. Now without that global -1, it's a lot harder for No Idea to challenge as much on Tatooine, and it's more of a back and forth game. It's much more interesting. It's not just a clear win for No Idea. So that errata helped entanglements, and then entanglements has a pretty decent matchup against Throne Room, getting that free Emperor, and then you can also tilt your entanglements to be stronger against mains by playing like 2 Tarkin's Orders to cancel drains. You could even be cheeky and play like an Always Think with your stomach, something like that. So it's got some decent matchups in the current meta. I think Legend can be problematic. If Legend just goes over to their interior Maz Castle site with like Leia, Rose, shuts off your Admiral's Order, starts draining for 2 there once they flip, and retrieving 1 with Rose, and just constantly doing that damage while they mess with you. Legend can be tough. They also have the potential to just drop down on you with Profundity Poe and Screaming Lando and try and blow out your ship. Of course, like we mentioned here, Alert is going to help with that, but you can still get massively outpowered. So entanglements, it's not one of the I think so. To more directly answer your question, Edward, I think the reason why you didn't see it as much is that ISB is really good. It's much more powerful, and so entanglements is playable. It's strong. It's a quite decent deck, but entanglements is ISB is just such above the power curve that most people are playing ISB. Mike Turner makes a good point. Legend would cap alert my Star Destroyer to immune less than 5. So that is a thing, but not in this game against Thronum. So both having kind of slow setups. Light did not deploy any characters last turn, but they did draw up to 12. I think they could have drawn more. There's very little chance, even in match play, that an entanglements player can squeeze in a Monarch. Just because then what are they also squeezing in a puller for it, or is it they just floating one? Like, entanglements is not gonna have a Monarch. So Light could have drawn more. Maybe they were good. Just I'm gonna save 5 because then I'll have 19 next turn and be able to do a bunch. And they just naturally 12 was fine. But they could have drawn a few more too. That's not a consideration. And Light's gonna be cycling here with 3PO. They got Seeking to get him out, and they could even R2 over here and attack. But with that stacked, there's no need to. R2 will. You could leave it in your deck for an extra life force and a Destiny 5, or you could just throw it out as a 1-0 if you want some more activation. So Brad used Force Push and he plays Blizzard 2. I'm guessing he grabbed the Blizzard 2 with the Force Push. Because otherwise you would, use Battle Deployment to pull it, or you'd play it from hand. So, I mean, he did play it from hand, but we know he had the Veers already. Is that it? I don't. Well, Brad's playing with too small of a hand here. He's only got 5. He's only got 2, and he can't come back with anything when Light attacks him here. If Light can, if Light drops Chewie, maybe he has a trample, but if Light drops Chewie and an EPP and clears off that, Brad just has no answers coming back in his hand. And I don't like playing Blizzard 2 and Veers here because the desert is already a place Light wants to avoid in general because they're stuck. I also would have put the desert in between because when Light gets stuck there, it's pretty good for Dark because you have the option to go engage and they don't have the option to run. He shuttles up Piet. I guess he's worried about getting outpowered by some ships. Light plays Wisa and is going to pull out a 0 from his deck, pull out the battle planes. I don't like Dark playing Blizzard 2 and Veers here because generally you want to let Light have that location at least until you're ready to challenge them, and Light rarely wants to attack Blizzard 2 and Veers unless it's like the only side on the table, right? Light doesn't want to attack here, and Light is disincentivized to go to the desert because they get stuck. So what you did is you just took a site that they didn't want to go to already and made them really not want to go there. That's not that great. Whereas if you put Blizzard 2 here, then Light is disincentivized to go to both those, so maybe makes it worse. Maybe they attack. Maybe they just go to the desert anyway and they get stuck. But by putting Veers here and sort of forcing Light's hand to not go to where Veers is... Hang on, my alarm is going off. I think if they put Veers at the middle site, it sort of forces Light to go over to the Desert Heart where they're trapped. So I don't like putting Veers there. I also think that transit was risky. Like, you didn't want to be there one turn ago. You conservatively moved away. But now that Light has more force and more cards in hand, you're happy going there with one less character who went up. Like, I don't... that was the opposite of a conservative play to do that. That's risky. And like, if a clash... There's no clash protection in entanglements, right? If Light comes down, it's just like, all right, I clash Emperor, let's go. Like, there's no decree V to give that dude a guaranteed battle destiny or anything. Possibly he has a sneak attack, but probably Tempest Scout 5 just gets beat up. Now Light is making a play that I don't particularly care for. And it's easy to second guess, but so the problem I think is with this play is Dark's totally immune. Maybe you massively outpower, but what's going to happen is Dark's going to lose Piet and you're going to lose someone good. And then Dark can throw another scrub. Of course, their hand being small is what helps this play be better, but Dark can throw someone else on there, and then you're trading, you know, like here, say you lose Rey, and then the next turn you lose Anakin, Lando. They're just losing. And if Dark has command here, then they're not losing anybody. They're not getting outpowered by one destiny that, yeah, is +2, but they might get outpowered by 1 or 2 and they peel 1 or 2 and you lose a character. So command to limit you here would be a bummer. There's a lot of reasons why this play doesn't help you very much as Light. You're sort of just pounding your head against a big Star Destroyer that Dark's happy to fortify and just have you go back and forth and waste all your resources there. Because in the meantime, they'll eke out a flip and they'll consolidate and they'll find an occupation and start doing some damage, and Dark's already ahead by 12 in the match. So if Light's wasting their resources here, Dark's happy with that. Dark, keep in mind, can flips by controlling sites, not the system. So Light has essentially stopped what is a drain of 0 when they're on the front, what would be a drain of 1 if they flipped. For what purpose? The only reason why as Light you go to this system is because you think you're going to kick them off. You think, hey, I'm going to win this system. You kick off the Devastator, you probably win the game. Light is not going to kick them off. So I don't know why you would go to the system. Like having Rey, Lando, Anakin, having these characters on the ground, starting to do damage, starting to attack is so much better. So maybe Edward's hand just doesn't really support going to the ground, but I doubt that with these 3 characters. And then you got Saitor that can pull sabers for a saber that can go on either one of those. So if I were Edward, I would have been attacking into this site, not attacking into the system. And then because I want to start putting guys out so that he can never flip. Let him drain me 1 and I'm controlling or contesting multiple sites and he can never flip, and I'm draining for more with sabers and eking out edges as I take advantageous battles. But right here, Dark I think just chooses to peel 3 and Light's got to lose a good character. So interestingly, there was no command, but Light drew a 1 and a 3, which became with Anakin a 2 and a 4, and then Rey added 1 to the total, made it 7. Dark drew a 2. They're still only outpowered by 3. I think if you're... Yeah, Edward's not sure who he should lose here. I think you lose Rey. Her card draw's good, but Anakin adding 1 to each, and clearly there's no command right now. But Brad's going to get a chance to draw a bunch and get that command. I think if this was still in his hand and force push, and he had, of these 9 force at these cost, he had 5, 6 more of it in hand and 3 more saved, he'd be in a much better position right now. If you just pretend those 2 were not on table, because all they're going to do right here is drain for 1. If those were not on table and he had a bigger hand, he had more saved, then next turn he'd be able to go down and flip. He could still deploy those guys if he wanted, but he'd have other characters to flip with. He might have a command in hand that would have meant he wouldn't have lost in power. If he had commanded and capped to 1 destiny, he wouldn't be peeling at all here. So keep that in mind when you're playing. Make sure you keep your hand size healthy. Brad top decks a desert. So he didn't have the other docking bay in deck. He's not going to be playing 5 sites. He loses Kurgi, Dark Time, and Desert. Dark Time, anti-Throne Room card, of course. Now Throne Room, seeing that go off the top, can feel free to grab command when it happens. So yeah, like I was saying, I don't think I would have attacked space. I would have held that Profundity for a long, long time. But I would be happier right now if I was Light and had those dudes on the ground, because Dark can just initiate again, and Lando can retrieve, but you probably don't care about that. So Dark trains 1 and 1. Dark can drop a guy on there, battle, outpower him again, or outpower him this time, make him lose another character, draw Destiny, make him lose another character, and then Light has just essentially lost a Rey, Anakin, maybe Lando, one of those two, and they got from the dark side 3 lost cards, and they lost 2 to 3 good characters. Like, that's not a good trade-off. Mike thinks Alert My Star Destroyer is an interesting meta call. There's a few ways with Light to play around it, especially that Legend, it not helping against Legend. And Light doesn't necessarily have a lot of strong space decks otherwise, so doesn't seem worth the card slot to me. Like right there, Dark would have had to lose a character, and if he didn't play this in deck, he would have had to forfeit a character there, but he wouldn't have taken any overflow, and he could have backed it up. And like, I think it's fine to just have Justice and have guys on there and fight over it. You don't need to make it immune. But it does let you go a little lighter in space if you're worried about that. Okay, so yeah, Dark, one of their 5 cards was a Thrawn. Pretty handy. So they will deploy Thrawn. He will deploy another vehicle. Oh, he did have the document. He does play 5 sites. Okay. So he flips. He once again is going to be very low on cards, but he drops evacs on there. I think the play here is he does Coward to stop Lando's drain. I don't like that. I mean, he probably has a Min as a shield puller, but otherwise he just shield busted himself with no battle plan on table. So Light, once they lose this space, which they will, Light will be able to drain free on the ground when they take over sites, unless Dark does get a shield puller. I might have just let Lando have that one back and said, Coward's not super important, but I don't know. Maybe he's playing a Cold Feet and a Min and isn't worried about it. So they both get 2 destinies, but Dark is already ahead 8 power and is totally immune. So this will kill another 1, maybe 2 guys if he draws more than 8. And then I think if you are... So he draws a 3. Yeah, even a 5 wouldn't crack here. He'd need a 6. Okay, so he does have a Cold Feet. So he does total 8. So that means Lando can't go. It's got to be Anakin. But he might still outpower him by a lot. Depends on what Light draws here. That's interesting. A Hujix combo. You don't see that often because it can't be pulled by the escape pod combo. One other interesting thing that indicates, Light draws a total of 9, but they're immune. Dark's immune, and Anakin will cover the power difference. One other interesting thing, if I'm the dark side player right there, I'm so happy to see Hujix combo, because that means you're not playing the puller. And the other thing the puller does is turn off occupation damage for a turn. So I'm going, wait a minute, if you have escape pod combo in your deck that can turn off occupation damage, you would be playing the Hujix that it pulls. So that indicates you don't have that. So great. Let's see. Dark is going to need to save at least 1 force to react some dudes. But I think they're safe to draw a couple. They could even shuttle down Piet inside this and move it over, but that would cost 2 force, and then saving 1 to react, they could only draw 1. Next turn, they'll get a peek with their objective to take 1 card, which is nice, but at some point, Dark's going to have to take a turn to draw. This was a good turn for them, pulling that, having evacs and Thrawn in hand. That was a very nice turn. But once again, they're pretty low. Brad draws a few and saves 1 force for that react. This has land speed 3 and land speed 3, so they can both get across there. If there was another site, they wouldn't necessarily be able to. But and Dark is activating a lot because mob points is giving him an extra 4. They would only have 11. They only have 11 icons, counting the Emperor. So only 10 sort of natural icons: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1 for themselves. So 9 icons, 1 for themselves. But Emperor giving 1 and mob points giving 4 is pretty big right now. light side is at some point just gonna have to lose all that stuff in space. Like the entire accomplishment of a Profundity, Anakin, Rey, and Lando was make Dark lose 3 cards. You know, and waste a whole turn of 20 force for light side and stuff. So, lesson for you guys when you're approaching entanglements: it's rare that attacking the system is the right move. If you just, if you Grim Toshed and you know they have no command, there's no justice on table, there's no barrier, because Dark just plays so many answers. There's no barrier, there's no command in their hand, there's no justice out, and you know your destinies, and you're going to be able to crack whatever forfeit they have and kill the Devastator. Like, all right, go for it. Like, but in general, you're just bashing your head against a wall, and Dark is happy to trade a guy for a guy because Dark has scrubs that they're losing and Light has good characters that they're losing, and in the meanwhile Light's doing nothing else, whereas Dark does have other stuff set up because their ship was free at the beginning of the game and your ship cost resources. So I think Dark is in a pretty good spot here. Edward, he's been 3POing, so he's been cycling his hand around. We'll see if he has answers. Actually, so I take back what I said earlier about not pulling Coward. And the reason is because that top card of Lost Pile was Leia's gun. Was top decked to a drain here at the Desert Heart. Oh no, he top decked Jedi Lev on top of it. So he could have got it back with Walkling. Basically, having Coward, or if Lando retrieved the Jedi Lev, then he can Walkling the Leia's gun is what I mean. So if Coward had not been out, that's what I would have done as Light if he let me retrieve with Lando, retrieve the Jedi Lev, and mid battle pop Walkling to get the gun back, because then you can come down with Leia and you got a gun and she can shoot stuff lost. But if you're Dark, pulling that Coward, and I don't know if Brad was thinking about that the Leia's gun was 2 down, or if he was just thinking, I don't want to give him a free card back. But by keeping that gun 2 down, and now with the Anakin on top, it's buried. Leia can't come down and just shoot your walker. So I was gonna say, and then I remembered, wait, we saw Leia's gun go off the top, didn't we? I was gonna say Edward's got to be cycling around with 3PO looking for his answers, whether that's Chewie with Bowcaster, and then with him you kind of need a perimeter scan so that he just doesn't immediately die to a trample. So Chewie and perimeter scan, or Leia's gun. But now that we saw Leia's gun gone, that's one less answer. I think Dark is in a good position to just straight up handily win this by, double digits. Not high double digits, because Dark is going to put a lot of cards on table and they're going to fight still and stuff. But, Light still has 31 in life force and 10 in hand. Light still has 40 hand in life. So it's not by any means over. Like I said, right, this site is Dark's biggest vulnerability right here. If Light comes down and goes Clash, if he gets like EPP, Obi, Qui-Gon, or Luke with Saber, but any guy with Saber and Chewie, and he can just go Clash him, hit that with Chewie, you're power 3 to my 12 in a Destiny, and you peel, 18 to this battle, or you peel 15 to this battle, that could very well put Light just right back in a happy place. So it's by no means over, but with the way Dark is set up, the fact that it's got multiple reacting vehicles, of course, it would also have to have the Odin canceller for the react. It would need a Clash, a Saber, ideally a Chewie, so it could get rid of that 4 extra forfeit, and an Odin canceller for the react. So Light would need to have a lot. They have been cycling with Chewie and drawing, but they also burned a lot of resources up in space. I'm wondering if Leia V is in the deck. She can cancel Veer's text. General Leia would be better against that battle deployment, which is capping Light side to 1 Destiny. But I think if you have General Leia, you're digging for her to turn that off, and then you would be putting your Lando down here so you could be drawing extra Destiny. But again, he's vulnerable to trample. So Light needs a combination of things to do some overflow, I think, because otherwise they just need a bunch of dudes. They need to take over this site with a guy still there, have a guy there, and have a guy at one of these. So then that they control 2 and occupy 1, control more than Dark. Dark would only control 1 at that point. So to flip them back. So Light goes ahead. They decide, all right, I'm going to get attack. We're both power 7 here. I get a swing. Like Dark I can react. Why? Light plays Leia up in space. She's going to be fodder, but you know what she's protecting you from? A drain of 1. You just lost a card by playing that Leia to stop a drain of 1. If I were Light here, I would be tracking that Hujix that I drew, 3POing for it, and just abandoning ship, shuttle down, Hujix of Profundity. It's time to give up on that. So Light, okay, cool. So we do have the scenario I was talking about. Maybe not the clash because he doesn't have 2 force for it, but maybe he has a Sari combo. Light had the Luke with Saber, so character with Saber. I said he had the Chewie that I said. Why would you play? Well, I don't like that. So apparently he had 2 dark times. That's an interesting one. Does Light grab that here? Probably. Well, no, you want to grab Trample? You probably grab Trample because otherwise they just get unlimited tramples with Blizzard 2 pulling it over and over and over. So you might have to just eat that one, but then the objective can pull that over and over and over. So it's annoying. So like I was saying, Light had everything I said they needed. They had a Saber, they had the Chewie to hit that. Ideally they'll have, and they had the React Canceller for that. It was a Sense, not a Odin combo, which meant Light had to lose to There Is No Try. Hopefully they'll have a Sari to clear that out, and then they'll be able to do some overflow here. And that's their best game plan. It was Edward sat there thinking for a bit and came up with the same thing I did. Is he going to hit the Emperor, though, is the question. He does, because Luke adding 2 to each. Otherwise, it would have been a miss. But that totals 8 instead of 6, which is enough to hit. We will see if he has the Sari. He's down to 5 cards, and he does. So, like I said, he's been cycling and getting his hand up to what he wanted. So, he Sari's the Emperor, who's going to die. And then Chewie will hit Tempest Scout 5. There's no decree to pop for a Destiny. It's possible he plays Sneak Attack. He does have the Trample for Chewie. And I think you grab that because otherwise Dark's just going to pull it again with Blizzard 2 here. And you have a lot of vulnerable characters between Chewie and Lando, and Solo and Lando and all those. So unless he has Perimeter Scan here, which he'd play immediately. Or, he might be thinking about grabbing it and then playing it. But I think you grab it here. He's wanting to save that one for Lando's upkeep, obviously. So that's rough. Yeah, maybe you can't. But if you don't grab it, then Blizzard 2 just pulls it back again. So, yeah, I just think probably should not have played Leia because you're still going to get massively outpowered. You should just have left Lando and Profundity. They cover 15 forfeit on their own. This is power 15, so you're going to be power 4 because the Admiral's order, but 4 plus 2 Destiny to their 15 and 2 Destiny, but you cover 15, so you essentially cover 19 and 2 Destiny to their 15 and 2 Destiny. You're not going to be peeling at all. So that 3 extra force from Leia would have given him enough force to grab here and still pay Lando's upkeep and then just forfeit them both on Dark Side Storm and Dark battles. But Dark, once they battle and clear that off, they're going to feel pretty happy in space that they can go ahead and shuttle down Piet. I might even consider shuttling down Thrawn and saying okay, maybe you've got a Tantive left, but you're already going to be down Chewie. You're going to be down a Leia and a Lando and a Profundity. I'm not that worried about it. I'll just leave Ozzel and the Devastator. He misses the Trample, so this is big. I'm guessing he'll leave Thrawn there too, but I think he can totally shuttle down Thrawn. Just leave Ozzel on the Devastator and say, if Tantive comes, I'll just shuttle guys back up to it. It's fine. Taniv's still going to be power 11 into Destiny and totally immune. So, but that's 2 turns from now. Let's go back to this turn. He was thinking for a while about trample. He did decide to grab it, which means Lando at the end of turn, he's going to have to lose 2 to send him used or put him out of play. But then the trample was missed. Mara and Ship was drawn as Destiny. That's a weird card to see in Entanglements because especially you're playing Alert to already buff up your space, and now you're going to play Mara as well, and then you don't get her on the ground. I don't know. But anyway, that Mara causes him to miss a trample, which means Chewie stays alive, hits the ship. Dark does have the Gick, though, so Light gets no overflow. And now Light, with no force left, is going to have to sacrifice Lando, which means he's not even going to get a Battle Destiny in space, which means instead of them covering 19 and 2 destinies, right now they're going to cover, let's see, power 4 and forfeits of 13. They'll cover 17 and no destiny versus 15 and 2. So now, and we just saw the Hujix drawn for weapon destiny with Chewie. So now 13 and 4 power 17. So Dark's 2 destiny minus 2 is how much Light will have to peel, and more if Dark has any characters in their hand or with their peak. Brad does peek at 3 cards and take one into hand, and he'll drain 1 and 1 now. He looks for a trample as well. So yeah, Light's going to be peeling in space. The whole space thing. I My chair's squeaky. Light top decks, it could be worse. Brad did grab the second trample, so he'll probably want to save 2 force for that and hold on to that for a bit. Light loses Clash. So that battle ended up being, I think, a net negative for Light's side, in that they lost Sorry About the Mess, and you have to lose a force to play Sorry. They lost a Sense to cancel the react, and 2 to There Is No Try, and they had to use their force to grab the trample, which meant Lando couldn't go, so now they're going to peel in space, and they didn't get any overflow because Dark gicked, so they killed an Emperor, a vehicle, and a Gick. It was not a good trade for Light, but Light had to go for it, right? If Dark didn't have the Gick in their 4-card hand, 4-card hand, if they didn't have the Gick, then you might, I don't know what the overflow would have been. It was, what did it say the power was? 10? So he'd lose the ship in 10. Okay, Leia cancels Strawn's tech, so it's just going to be 1 destiny. But so they cover up to 17. Even if Dark draws a 5, they're not peeling any. But okay, so Light's not going to have to peel any, but they are going to lose both of these, and essentially up in space have lost Anakin, Rey, Lando, Leia, Profundity, and made Dark lose 3 cards to overflow in that first one. Dark adds 1 with prepared defenses, which I don't like because the forfeit's still going to cover. So, there's only 11 difference and they cover 13. It feels like you just wasted a prepared defenses. You could use that in a battle. You're either losing or winning by overflow to where you need 1 more attrition or whatever. Feels kind of like a waste. It's not like he's trying to up diff now at the end of the game. Okay. So he played Leia there because he had a Protector in hand and a Chewie in hand, and the Protector says Leia's in a battle, you can lose Chewie to satisfy all battle damage and attrition. So it soaks up everything there. Interesting that he's playing both a Chewie Bowcaster and a Chewie Enraged. Disembarks the Vader that was pulled with Blizzard 4. So Light's going to get to drain free. Dark has 2 force saved, which means they can trample or react. Light is going to drain 2 here. Dark doesn't really care. They're doing more damage. And so now with that space battle, I would have lost Leia and Profundity instead of Chewie and Protector. You essentially lost another 2 cards to stay in space, but there's no battle order out. You don't need to be in space to drain, and so yeah, we're at a situation where Light's just throwing good money after bad, keeping that Leia in profundity, like deploying the Leia so that you could lose a Chewie and Protector in hand to keep it alive there one more turn. I mean, Dark will just kill it all next turn, unless you throw more guys on there so it can survive another turn, but why? Dark is pretty decent at all of these locations now, especially with Leia's gun on and Chewie over there. This thing's not going to get hit by anything. Maybe there's a Yutani. There could be a Yutani, but otherwise Bowie and Leia's gun are the only thing hitting vehicles. So this is safe because evacs forfeits for 7. So anything comes down like an EPP OB or whatever, OB dies, evacs dies, you still have the vehicle there, you're fine. So this is pretty safe because no weapons can hit that. This is obviously quite safe. This is pretty safe. Like, I guess Light can come down and clear this. They can, drop an EPP OB or Qui-Gon, hit Vader, draw Destiny, and clear Blizzard 4, but they are down. They would be massively down in power. OB covers 13, Qui-Gon 14. So I guess their forfeit would just cover it if they drew similar Battle Destinies. Doesn't really do much for you unless you also have another character. And then you can flip him back by going OB and somebody else, clearing both of them, losing to somebody else, transiting Luke here, and then you control 2 to his 1. Transiting Chewie's a big risk because he has that second trample that he pulled last turn. Chewie can't move over. Vader will just blank him. But even there's no occupation out. It's not like flipping Dark back is that big a deal. And Light's blocking that drain anyway. So, but once that ship dies, it'll be a drain of 1. Once Brad can use his peak to find an occupation and put that there, Dark's going to really start putting on the damage. So, like we said, you can kind of tell once you get the experience what a lot of the plays are going to be. It's obviously always up to whatever cards they have in their hand, but with 3PO and knowing what cards are in a deck, you can generally predict, and you'll hear that when players are commentating a lot. They'll say, here's the line of play, here's the line of play, and then there's the line of play, and you can discuss what that'll look like. But that is a useful skill to have, one of the most useful skills to have in Star Wars, and comes with experience and maybe watching some commentary like this and learning from it, and just playing lots of games. But it's a really useful skill to have, because when you're sitting at the table knowing your opponent's likely lines of play, you can plan for them, right? You can go, oh, here's my weak spot. His best line of play is a guy with Saber and a Chewie, so I need to make sure I have some kind of protection for that. And if he didn't have the Gick, if he didn't have the trample for the Chewie, which didn't end up working out, he did have the 1 react, he had the trample, he had the Gick, so he felt safe. But if you didn't have those, then you'd need to be playing a little more conservative. Then maybe you put you keep Piet down on it too. Maybe you back it up with more and just don't worry about flipping and ping. So he must attract the Hujix and 3PO'd for it, I'm guessing, because he decides to shuttle Leia down and just leave the profundity, which will die. So die plus a Hujix. So now Dark will drain 1. Probably peek at their destinies when they do the reserve peak. I'd probably activate all but like 2 or 3, and it's tempting to move over and trample that Chewie, but he might have drawn perimeter scan by now, so you probably don't do that unless you have to. But Light's draining 2, Dark's draining 2. Dark plays. Wait a minute. It's Lightside's turn. Dark played a cold feet that they clearly drew into last turn. Why didn't they play that to make Light pay to drain? Maybe they thought Light just had enough force and they wanted to save it in case there was like a Jedi's Resilience blade or something. Or a Savrip? Probably not Savrip. So, yeah, I think he should have just played that on. earlier and made light to pay to drain. Because you're going to want that shield up. But so Dark activates. Right now, I'll give you an update after these drains. 16. Dark's up by... After these 2 drains, Dark will be up by 3. And of course is about to take over space, and maybe more importantly, probably more importantly, is up. Yeah, he did his peak and then drained, and now he's using battle deployment. He probably saw a vehicle when he did that peak. And Vader's Tempest Scout 1 is fun because you can throw a Vader on board and still blank Chewie. So I'd keep Vader piloting. I'd move him over in front of Chewie, just blank Chewie, have both of them on Tempest Scout 1, and have... Yeah, see, I don't know that you need to battle here. I would just move all them. You got the potential trample for Chewie, and if the trample misses, you can blank Chewie. So, but Brad's just going for it. He says, I massively outpower you. You're going to have to use a Hujix here, possibly here. I'm gonna get multiple destinies. If you had another biker scout, that would be nice, but obviously not. So he battles in space first. He's gonna clear off guys. What is... Opponent just deployed 4 more characters at the same location, prevent all of them from battling, or if they just reacted to a battle, cancel it. That doesn't seem worth playing because 4 more locations. I guess that's an anti-ISB card. If they pile on, a bunch of cheap ISB guys, you go, nope, no, those guys can't battle. The second part, if they just react to cancel the battle, if in that case, you'd rather just play an extra react canceller. You'd play a Help Me OBV, you'd play an Odin combo, you'd play a Sense. So the second part, it's not for the second part. That may just be okay, maybe I'll use that once in a blue moon. This is mostly an anti-ISB thing. But I think they're better anti-ISB cards. But it's cool seeing a card that doesn't see play much, if at all. Oh yeah, other people in the chat said haven't seen that one in a while. Yeah, and everyone's agreeing. Seems like ISB tech, and Mike points out there's some other ones. There was that Virgins early on. So Dark clears off Profundity and draws out the Hujix, and then battles on the ground, and Light hits Tarkin. It's a little weak swinging at Tarkin there. I think you need to take that Vader out because like I said, Vader popped onto one of those things sitting in front of Chewie, just blanking him every turn. That's annoying for Light side because Chewie's one of their only threats. And I think if you move in front, this is a drain of 2, this is a drain of 1. So you go ahead and give them that for the moment while you build up more. But again, whatever. Dark's ahead. They're ahead in the match. They're ahead in the game. Mike Turner said he probably would have put Kippel on ISB for the top 16. That Brad plays it a lot. So putting in some anti-ISB tech makes sense. And I agree. I'm just questioning the choice of ISB tech. Here you go ahead and lose Barak because he's 4'5", and then you pop Vader onto pilot. You lose his 6 power, but you gain 6 power because this 3, if it was empty, plus he adds 3. So you could always shuttle down Piet or something and then keep his 6 power outside, but it's better to just not be vulnerable to weapons right now. Oh, all right. And we see a GG here. Edward calls it. He says, yeah, I mean, he's at 16 in his life force, and he needs to win by 13 plus. So he can only afford to lose 3 more cards plus the 7 in hand, 10 total. And he's got not much going on. Down by 23 here. They cover 13, and he had already used his Hujik. So he's going to peel 10 here. That ends the game here. Because if he loses both those, 10 more, he is at... He's at 23 total hand and life right now. That would put him down to 13 hand and life, which he'd need to have 0 in hand then and 13 in life to win. He couldn't lose another single card. which obviously is not possible. He'd have to do 18 points of damage, 22 points of damage before taking a single drain. Not going to happen. So that beatdown, it ended up working. My talking about moving over and Blank and Chewy would have just been slower and grindy, but he says, I'm just going to have 2 beatdowns. You don't have 2 Hujixes, you don't have a solo on table, so do a beatdown up here and a beatdown down here, and in the match. So congratulations to Brad for advancing to the round of 8. Congrats, Edward, for 4-0ing your pod and making it to the round of 16. Thanks everyone for watching, chatting in the chat during the stream, and have a good one.